Welcome back to another exciting, jam-packed edition of the NFLandU Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Hayden Vassar, coming to you on October 25th, Friday, the Week 8 preview edition. We are at the halfway point of the season, people. Get excited. Woo. Get pumped. We got 14 games to preview. We got a game recap to get to. We just got a whole bunch of stuff to get to today. And why not start with the game last night, the Thursday night football game? Let's get into it. Washington at Minnesota. Minnesota wins this one 19-9. Minnesota improves to 6-2 on the season, have won 4 straight. Washington falls to 1-7 and have lost 2 straight. And it was a bit of a clunker of a game. I mean, nobody was expecting Washington to win this game or be competitive, but so everybody's expectations for this game were already on the floor, just bare minimum expectations, and it felt like the game didn't even get to that because in the first half it was actually a close game in the first half. It was a field goal kicking extravaganza for both teams. Because neither team could really punch it into the end zone. Washington's defensive line that we talked about on Tuesday's show was stepping up and creating havoc in the backfield. They sacked Kirk Cousins a couple times, and they were finding holes in the Minnesota defense. They just couldn't get it into the end zone when it mattered. Washington was held scoreless the entire night. Well, not scoreless. They just were kept out of the end zone, I should say. And it's getting close to halftime, and the Vikings get the ball back, and they score with Dalvin Cook. It's the lone touchdown this entire game. And, that sets the Vikings up just a couple points ahead of the Washington football team, and you're thinking, okay, let's see what the second half is going to hold, because Washington's hanging around. And you know what happens when teams hang around and teams don't finish off their opponents? They're going to lose the game. But Case Keenum, the Washington starting quarterback, in the first half, he went 12 of 16 for 130 yards, 2 sacks. So he's playing pretty well in the first half. There's just one problem. The poor guy suffered a concussion at the end of the first half, so he's ruled out the rest of the game. And then in comes rookie quarterback Dwayne Haskins, the only healthy quarterback on the entire Washington roster. And as soon as Dwayne Haskins comes in, the Washington offense slows to an absolute crawl. Haskins on the night. This is his entire stat line for the second half. Are you ready? Went 3 of 5 passing, so he only attempted 5 passes, 33 yards, an interception, and 4 sacks. That means the entire second half it went through Adrian Peterson, the offense. And in the second half they had, where is the exact number? I'm looking at it. They had 69 total offensive yards in the second half. 69 yards. It was just pitiful to watch Washington in the second half, and it didn't matter what Minnesota did because there was no hope that Washington was going to move the ball at all in the second half. Minnesota literally just coasted the rest of the game. They didn't punt the ball once. The Vikings, the only reason there were turnover on downs was because either Stephon Diggs fumbled in the first half or the Vikings just willingly turned it over late in the fourth quarter because they just didn't want to run up the score for whatever reason. It was really interesting because in the first half you're thinking, man, Washington's really hanging in there. Minnesota's looking sloppy. It's not really working in any facet with this offense or defense. And you're thinking, man, maybe Washington can maybe steal it in the second half on the road on Thursday Night Football. And then, Dwayne Haskins comes in and it just all goes out the window. And that's sad because Washington was really giving Minnesota trouble in this game. They really were. Minnesota did not resemble the offense that we had seen these last 3 weeks with Kirk Cousins. I mean, Kirk Cousins played well in this game. He didn't play bad by any metric, in my opinion. It just wasn't, this light it up, score a bunch of points, and throwing it all over the yard offense that we've been used to these last couple weeks. Dalvin Cook had another good game, over 100 total yards in this game. He went 23 rushes, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Then he had 5 catches for 73 yards. So Yeah, that's well over 150 scrimmage yards, now that I'm doing the math in my head. And Stephon Diggs continues to stay hot for this Vikings offense. 7 catches, 143 yards. Stephon Diggs has been white hot lately since he demanded the trade a couple weeks ago. It was just a weird clunker of a game. I think Minnesota finding ways to win when nothing's working is a sign that they're a much better team than they were a couple weeks ago. There's just really not a whole lot to say about this game. I'm trying to find things to say when I was doing my notes for it this morning, and I just couldn't think of a whole lot to say. There was that really nice touching moment at the end of the game when they flashed on the big screen in Minnesota that Adrian Peterson had moved ahead on the all-time rushing list over another player, and the crowd in Minnesota gave him a standing ovation because, Peterson played there for 10 years? 10, 12 years? What felt like forever. And for a lot of years, he was basically their everything in Minnesota. And they still love him, and that was very nice to see that they gave him the standing ovation. And he had some nice runs in this game. There were some times when he busted through a hole and made some old-school Peterson runs, and that was very nice to see. Peterson on the night finished 14 rushes, 76 yards, 2 catches, 27 yards. And yeah, it's just shy of 100 total yards, and I really wonder if Case Keenum had played in the second half of this game, how closer it could have been, because I'm telling you, once Dwayne Haskins came in, there was no fear from Minnesota anymore. They just coasted, and they were fine with that. And now both these two teams get a little bit of an extended break because they played on Thursday Night Football. And you got to wonder what Washington's going to do, because Colt McCoy, their other quarterback, he's hurt. He was inactive in this game. And now Case Keenum has a concussion. So the next time Washington plays for next week, it might be Dwayne Haskins' first start of his career. Just mainly because everybody else is hurt. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll see what happens with that next week. But Minnesota wins a very sloppy, ugly game on Thursday Night Football. Very much a clunker of a game, 19-9. And Minnesota's riding high at 6-2, trying to keep pace with the Packers in the NFC North, and Washington's fledgling around in the basement of the NFC East. All right, so that's Thursday Night Football recap. Yeah, it wasn't pretty, and that recap was sloppy, just like that game. True to life. So we're going to get into the preview portion. There are 2 teams on a bye this week, the Cowboys and the Ravens. So we really have a full slate of games this weekend. But the problem with that is there's a lot of games that look to be fairly one-sided on the schedule. There's really only 1 or 2 that I'm actually excited to watch, in all honesty. But we're going to go through each one. We're going to talk about each team, and we're going to pick a winner. So let's get into it. First one up, the 5-2 Seahawks, going all the way to Atlanta to take on those 1-6 Falcons on a 5-game losing streak. Oh boy. So the main question for the Falcons right now, will Matt Ryan play? We talked about it on Tuesday. He suffered an ankle injury in the fourth quarter of their last game. It's still doubtful whether he's going to play or not. And if he can't go, that means Matt Schaub, their backup, the former Houston Texans quarterback, will come in to replace him. And it just feels like everything is going wrong for this Falcons team right now. You trade away Mohamed Sanu. Your star quarterback's hurt now. I don't know what's gonna go on with their running backs. I don't know if Devontae Freeman's playing in this game. It's just everything that could go wrong is going wrong for Atlanta right now. And apparently Julio Jones said after the loss last week when Dan Quinn was giving his speech in the locker room that it's on the players and it's not necessarily on Coach Quinn. But it's on all of them right now with this losing streak. Nobody is playing good. And if Matt Schaub has to come in and play quarterback for this team, that makes things even worse, in all honesty. Because Matt Ryan was literally the only thing keeping Atlanta in games, was the fact that he was throwing for over 300 passing yards and a couple touchdowns each game. He was the only thing keeping them in games. And if he's gone, oh my goodness, it's really about to hit the fan at Atlanta. But like I said, we don't know if he won't play in this game or not. There still hasn't been confirmation on whether he's going to be out or not, and it sounds like they're going to start leaning towards he'll be a game time decision, which is never a good thing. It's not just the Falcons' offense; it's their defense as well. Their defense has just been atrocious to watch. They are the worst team in the league in terms of getting sacks. They are the only team that has 5 sacks in the league. That's the worst in the entire league. They haven't gotten a sack since September, so they've gone well over a month without getting a single sack in a game. So that bodes well for the Seahawks team that's coming off a loss and looking for a quick bounce back win. And if any team that's playing the Falcons right now just feels like they can figure out a rhythm and get their offense back on track, we've seen it with almost every team that's played the Falcons so far, with the exception of their lone win against the Eagles. Every team can beat this Falcons team, and every team's offense can work against this Falcons defense. I'm blanking on most of their schedule. Colts, Rams, you name it, and a team has come in and gotten their offense figured out. So Seattle, whose offense got a little off track last week, is probably going to have a really big bounce back game in this game, is what I'm getting at. Especially their defense that got out physicaled and just got ran all apart by Lamar Jackson last week. Falcons are probably not going to have Matt Ryan, and there's no Mohamed Sanu, so they're going to tee off in this game. And especially with that bad Falcons defense that I talked about, Wilson could have a bounce-back game and get back into the MVP conversation against a really bad defense that's allowing 387.7 yards per game. I think this is a slam dunk win for the Seahawks. The Falcons are just about as bad can get right now. So I'll take the Seahawks to win this one. All right, moving on to our next one. Philadelphia at Buffalo. Philadelphia 3-4, riding a 2-game losing streak, going to a Buffalo team that's really feeling themselves. 5-1 Buffalo on a 2-game winning streak. This is a golden opportunity for the Buffalo offense to really flex its muscle. A lot of people have praised the Buffalo defense all season long, but the one detraction from this team has been their quarterback and their offense that has struggled at times. The Buffalo Bills offense has the number 21 passing offense in the league, with 225.3 passing yards per game. So this Buffalo Bills passing offense that hasn't always been that great is going up against a secondary and defense in Philadelphia that has just been atrocious, especially in blown coverages. The way you beat this Eagles team is you just throw it over the top of them. That's how you beat them. They're too banged up to stop you. And I wanted to say that the Eagles have a good run defense, and for most of the season they have, until last week when they played Dallas and Ezekiel Elliott just ran over everybody. So I don't know if they have a good run defense. If they can come in and stop Frank Gore, maybe we can get back into that conversation. But this defense from Philadelphia has just been atrocious, and it's what's been killing this team. So like I said, it'd be a perfect opportunity for the Buffalo Bills offense to flex its muscle and show us what it's capable of. Like I said, this offense is built like a team that's going to score 17 to 20 points and then top out. And that defense will hold you to 14 points because that defense is good. The Bills defense may not start fast, but they will suffocate you late in games. Just ask the Bengals and Dolphins. Those two winless teams that, pushed Buffalo fairly hard, but in the fourth quarter, the Bills defense comes alive and gets turnovers and pulls its team back into the fight. They're number 3 in total Z with 292.7 yards per game given up. But the key to this game, like it is for every Eagles game, the Eagles cannot start slow in this game. If they are down double digits at the half again in this game, it's a wrap. You can't let this defense start playing downhill on you and running you over. Because if you do, it's game over. For whatever reason, I don't understand what's wrong with the Eagles. Orlando Scandrick appeared on one of the morning talk shows today. He played with the Eagles last week, and then they cut him. And Skandrick said there's an accountability problem with this team, that guys are still reeling from that Super Bowl high from 2 years ago. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but I just know there's a lot going wrong with this Eagles team right now. And if they go into Buffalo and they're trailing, it doesn't even have to be a big lead. It could be 13-0 at the half. That's still a double-digit lead, and that defense is going to play downhill on the Eagles. That's a problem. You can't afford to, get behind in this game by big digits like you have in every game. Like you were in Dallas, like you were against Washington, like you were against the Lions. If that happens, it'll be game over at the half. But I think a fair question to be asked is, will Philadelphia come out with a new fire? Because from reading reports coming out of the locker room today, from talking with players today, Friday, apparently Orlando Skandrick's comments have really struck a nerve with the Eagles. They've taken offense to that. So maybe they come out with a bit of intensity in Buffalo on Sunday and actually start fast for once. And this could potentially be a cornered animal game. Philadelphia's 3-4. They lose this game, they're 3-5. I mean, they have to have a sense of urgency here. The season's going to start slipping away from them. They got to keep, like it or not, they're going to have to keep pace with Dallas. And, a slow start here and a loss in Buffalo could really, set them back a lot. But I'm going to take Buffalo to win this one. I just don't feel confident in the Eagles. They've been one of the biggest disappointments this season because I really expected them to be one of the better teams in the NFC, and they just haven't resembled anything close to that. But I'm going to take Buffalo to win this one. All right, moving on to our next one. The Los Angeles Chargers going on the road, taking on the Chicago Bears. Chargers are 2-5, riding a 3-game losing streak. The Bears are 3-3, riding a 2-game losing streak. And both teams desperately need a win. Desperately need a win. Earlier this week, Taylor Gabriel, the Bears wide receiver, said the team was going to have a players-only meeting. And that's never a good sign when you hear that, because that means the team's really struggling. If players are having to get together and tell each other, we need to pull this together. The Bears' main problem, I should say, is on offense. That's where their problems are currently lying. Their offense is struggling, and it's sputtering, and it's leaving the defense on the field way too long. And as a result, they're getting beat. And yeah, they're playing a much tougher schedule than they played last year, but there should be no excuses. I mean, this team was pegged by a lot of people to be one of the better teams in the NFL. Not just NFC, NFL. And a lot of people have pointed at the fact that their defense seems to have regressed. I don't think it's regressed. I just think it's being left on the field way too long and getting no help from its offense. Is what I think the problem is. And specifically from their quarterback play. Their quarterback play has been atrocious. And Mitchell Trubisky, who's now in his second game back from the shoulder injury, he's running out of excuses. If he comes out and just stinks up the joint against this really bad Chargers team, I can only imagine the chorus of boos that will rain down at Soldier Field if he has another audacious performance like he had last week. It'll be bad. But I think the way to help with this is you finally manufacture a run game. Because he threw the ball 54 times last week and they only ran the ball 7 times. It was a franchise low record in 7 rush attempts in a game. But I think that could be solved this week because the Chargers have the number 21 rushing defense in the league. They're giving up an average of 117.1 rushing yards per game. So if it's going to come alive at any point, I think this Sunday could be a perfect opportunity for the Bears' run game to come alive. And that's what they need. They got to get a run game going and take the pressure off Trubisky. That's how you do it. And then play defense. This Chargers team is banged up horrendously on both the offensive and defensive sides of the football. So, get physical with them. go be maulers. Maul them on the offensive line and maul them on the defensive line and push them around. That is how the Bears are going to win this game. And for the Chargers, they just got to control time of possession, in my opinion. That's how they're going to win this game. You're hurt everywhere, but you got to find a way to start manufacturing longer drives to keep things going. Your run game has been as atrocious as the Bears because you're averaging, what, like 39 rushing yards a game if you're the Chargers? Since Melvin Gordon came back. So you also have to find a way to get your run game going and take the pressure off your quarterback and Phillip Rivers. The Chargers are hurt everywhere on the offensive line, defensive secondary. It's just a bonanza of a bad time for the Chargers. So I'm taking the Bears to win this game just because I have so little faith in the Chargers right now. But if the Bears can't win this game, I'm taking the Bears to win it. But if they can't and the Chargers somehow find a way to win, I'm willing to put a fork in the Bears season and call it done. Because if you can't beat a 2-5 Chargers team where everybody is hurt, then you deserve to have a bad season, in my opinion. I'll take the Bears to win, but it's probably going to be a very low-scoring and ugly, sloppy game. If you're expecting clean, pristine, high-scoring football, that will not be the game for you. But once again, I'll take the Bears. Moving on. A game that I think could potentially be fun. You got the 2-5 New York Football Giants riding a 3-game losing streak, going to Detroit to take on the 2-3-1 Lions, also riding a 3-game losing streak. So something's got to give in this game. Am I right? A matchup of really bad defenses, though. The Lions' defense has been bad, and I'm ready to finally say that they're bad. This season, they're among one of the worst in almost every category in total yards and passing yards. They're just bad. Especially now that Quandre Diggs, one of their defensive leaders, had been traded away to the Seahawks. You got to wonder how much worse this defense is going to look this Sunday. And yeah, Quandre Diggs hasn't played well, but still, he's one of your leaders on defense. His presence will be missed. So you gotta wonder as well about the Giants, whose only good thing they can do on defense is rush the passer and get sacks. That's the only thing they can do on defense. They're bad at everything else. So neither defense knows how to really stop anybody. And the Giants have more than just problems on defense. Their offense has also been struggling. Outside of that one game in Tampa Bay, Daniel Jones really hasn't looked that good, in all honesty, taking in the bulk of his work. I mean, for 3 straight weeks, the Giants' offense has not looked good, and a lot of it has been he's been getting sacked a lot, and he's under a ton of pressure. And if you get in any rookie quarterback's face, they're going to struggle. I don't think the Lions have that good of a pass rush, especially with the big free agent signing they had in Trey Flowers. Really hasn't done a whole lot since he got in Detroit. So, this is a matchup with two bad defenses. Maybe the Giants' offense can come back alive in this game. It sounds like Sterling Shepard is still out with his second concussion, and you really worry about that. But you still got Evan Ingram. Saquon Barkley is going to be even healthier this week. And you got Golden Tate. Oh, Golden Tate revenge game. I just realized that. Golden Tate used to play for the Lions for like 2 or 3 seasons. Golden Tate revenge game. I just worry a bit about Daniel Jones. The Giants are just going to be however good Daniel Jones is. If he comes out and has a good game, the Giants will be good. If he comes out and has a bad game like he has the last 3 weeks, they're going to be bad. It's just that simple of a roller coaster ride. But I think if they can find a way to protect Daniel Jones, the Giants will be okay. Like, for instance, he was sacked 8 times last week against the Cardinals. 4 of those sacks were by one player in Chandler Jones. Maybe if he only gets sacked 3 times, I think that would be a vast improvement for the Giants' offensive line. But speaking to the Lions' offense now, they had a big blow this week. Kerryon Johnson, their starting running back, got placed on IR. And they're expecting him to return much later in the season, but Right now he's gone, and I think the backup is Ty Johnson to come in and back him up. But I'm curious as to how much of an impact that's going to actually have on the Lions. Their running game, they're trying to get it going each game, but it just hasn't been there. They're more predicated on passing the ball with Marvin Jones, T.J. Hawkinson, and Kenny Galladay. I almost forgot his name for a second, but it's Kenny Galladay. They have the number 6 passing offense in the league with 277.2 passing yards per game. That's where their bread and butter on offense is. With Darren Bevel, their offense coordinator, who came over in the offseason, that's where the Lions' offense is with passing. So I don't expect the Kerryon Johnson injury to affect them too much. Both teams really need a win, though. They could really both use a win. The Lions are trying to stay alive in the NFC North, but their issue is that they haven't been able to finish games, against tougher opponents that they've hung around in the fourth quarter with them, and that they can hang with these tougher teams, but they just can't finish them. And this would be a perfect win for the Lions. It'll go right in with their other 3 wins this season. Their other 2 wins. Against the Chargers and Eagles, 2 bad teams that they were able to finish. It's just these tougher ones they've struggled against. But I'll take the Lions in this one. I just have more faith in the Lions offense right now with Matthew Stafford passing to Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay. I just have more faith in that. But it's probably going to be a tight fourth quarter game. Almost every game the Lions have played so far this season has been very close in the fourth quarter. I expect that from this one. I just don't really buy into what the Giants are selling right now. They have the tools to be successful. I just don't know if they're putting it together to be successful. It's all going to make or break on whether Daniel Jones has a good day or not. So I'll pick the Lions to win. Moving on to our next one. The 2-4 Buccaneers coming off a bye week. Still on a 2-game losing streak. Are going all the way to Tennessee. Take on the 3-4 Titans, who got a big win last week against the bad Chargers team. So, Tampa Bay. Last time we saw them, Jameis Winston turned the ball over 6 times in London, and there were a lot of questions around him. But the one question we don't have is that the Tampa Bay running defense is still good. They have the number 1 rushing defense in the league. They're giving up 68 rush yards per game. And that bodes well going against a team like the Titans, whose offense is heavily predicated around running the ball with Derrick Henry. So you shut Derrick Henry down, and you force Ryan Tannehill to beat you by throwing the ball. That's going to be the Tampa Bay strategy. Force him to go to tight ends, to Corey Davis, your wide receiver, to A.J. Brown, who I think is another wide receiver on that roster, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I think it's A.J. Brown. Those wide receivers had a better week last week because Ryan Tannehill had a 300-yard passing game, and he was moving the ball downfield. Now, granted, it was against the Chargers, and Tampa Bay is slightly better than the Chargers, but still. You bottleneck Derrick Henry and you force Ryan Tannehill to beat you. That should be the game plan for Tampa Bay. For Tennessee's defense, Tennessee has a good defense. I've been saying that all season long, it feels like. The Titans have the number 8 total defense in the league. They're giving up 328 yards per game. The key for them is to take the pressure off of Ryan Tannehill and put it on Winston, if you get what I'm saying. We don't know what kind of version of Jameis Winston we're going to get in this game. We never do. Are we going to get the guy that for 2 weeks was lighting the NFL on fire and tearing apart the Rams? Or are we going to get the guy that we saw in London that turns the ball over 6 times? What version of that are we going to get? The Titans have 9 takeaways on defense this year. They could get a couple in this game. Because when Jameis Winston tends to turn the ball over, he turns it over in bunches. The Buccaneers have talent, to really go off offensively, with O.J. Howard and Mike Evans and... Oh, God, I'm forgetting the other wide receiver's name. I blanked on it. Anyway, they have weapons is what I'm getting at. It just doesn't always click. And I think this is a game where it's not going to click. And, I've rarely picked the Titans all season long because I think they're a dysfunctional mess on offense. But I think with Ryan Tannehill in, they're a better team, and I'm going to take the Titans to win this game because I don't trust Jameis Winston. But I do trust that Titans defense. That's the only thing in this game I trust. It's going to be a slow, sloppy game that's probably going to have a final score of like 16-13, but I'll take the Titans to win it. Very sloppy game at the 1 o'clock time slot. Moving on, we got the Denver Broncos, the 2-5 Broncos, going all the way to Indianapolis to take on the 4-2 Colts, who are riding high right now. The leader of the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, who thought we'd be saying that at the halfway point? Am I right? So the Broncos traded Emmanuel Sanders on Tuesday. That happened in the middle of our podcast. If you hadn't listened to that. And their offense is probably only going to get worse because they traded him away. Denver has the number 26 passing offense with 207.9 passing yards per game. Oh boy, that's probably going to take a big dip after Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Now, don't get me wrong. I think they still have talent in the Denver offensive category. I think Cortland Sutton, their rookie wide receiver, has really come into his own. I think Noah Fant has talent. He just, for the love of God, has to learn to stop dropping the football. He's been struggling with that since the preseason. I mean, my goodness, man. Hold on to the freaking football. But the Denver offense it isn't predicated around throwing the football. It's more about running the football with Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. You know, that's what their bread and butter is. So for the Colts defense, that hasn't really been good. It's okay. You know, it's like average, but it hasn't been great. Their main focus should be bottlenecking the run game. You come in and you stop the run game and you force Joe Flacco to throw the ball 35 plus times a game. You know, you force him to go to Noah Fant, who's had issues dropping. You force him to go to Cortland Sutton. You know, you take away this run game that their offense is, you know, built around, and you just force them to get away from it. Also, I would suggest that the Colts get physical at the line of scrimmage on the Broncos offensive line. Get physical with them. Garrett Bowles, one of their offensive linemen, he has a real issue of getting beat, and when he gets beat, he just starts holding. And I'm telling you, there have been a couple of games where I've watched where Garrett Bowles is just getting holding penalty after holding penalty after holding penalty, and it really can screw with the Broncos. So really just get physical with the Broncos offensive line, and I think you'll be fine. But the Colts are another team that also likes to run the football with Marlon Mack. But the Broncos have the number 16 rushing defense, so it's about average. They're giving up like 107.3 rushing yards per game. The Colts have the number 18 rushing defense, 111 rushing yards per game. So they're right around the same with each other in terms of rushing defense. So we'll see what happens in this game. But the difference between the Colts and the Broncos in terms of offense is that if the Colts' run game isn't working, they can win through the air as well. Jacoby Brissett is proving that he can be a starter in this league. And he's got weapons to throw to. T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron. They've got weapons. And Frank Reich can build up any game plan. And if it isn't working at the halftime, they'll switch and come up with something new. I just don't think the Broncos can do that. So I'm taking the Colts in this one. I just think they're a far better team than the Broncos right now. And the Broncos just feel kind of, wistless right now. So I'm taking the Colts to win this one. All right, moving on to our next game. I've got the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh, boy. The 0-7 Bengals going all the way to Los Angeles to take on the 4-3 Rams. As we mentioned last week, the Bengals have the worst rush defense in the league. They're number 32. They're giving up an average of 189 rush yards per game. On the season, they've given up over 1,300 rushing yards. They're one of only two teams in the NFL to give up 1,000 rushing yards. The Chiefs are the other one. So you got to wonder, is this the game that the Rams' rushing attack finally gets back on track this season? With Todd Gurley and Malcolm Brown, is this finally going to be the moment for the Rams' rushing attack? And it's just something that the Rams have struggled with all season. And I think that's why their offense has really struggled. Besides the fact that their offensive line has really not been good at blocking, is that they have no running game, and it all has to rely on what Jared Goff does. But in this game, I think they can rely on their run game heavily. Even if Todd Gurley only gets like 15 rushes in this game, that could even be 100 yards because of how bad the Bengals' rush defense has been. Rams have the number 9 total offense in the league with 329.3 yards per game. That's without all of the rushing. They've been one of the worst rushing teams in the league. So, even without all the rushing, their offense is still potent with what they have. And the Bengals are just so bad. They don't even warrant talking about, in my opinion. I think the Rams have gotten really lucky with the scheduling lately. They had that tough loss at Seattle, and then, last week they played the Falcons, a really, really bad team, and now they're playing, the winless Bengals, another really bad team. So, these 2 straight weeks, the Rams are getting cupcake teams to really, figure themselves out offensively, and I think that's going to help them in the long run. But Cincinnati's just so bad, I just don't even want to talk about them, in all honesty. I think their go-to weapon right now is Andre Erickson, the, 4th-string wide receiver. So I'm taking the Rams to win this one. It could get weird, like the Jacksonville-Cincinnati game last week was weird in the 4th quarter. It could maybe be like that, but I expect the Rams to win probably by 10 or more points. I have zero faith in the Bengals right now. All right, moving on to an actual fun game. You got the 3-1 Cardinals, riding a 3-game winning streak, going to New Orleans to take on the 6-1 Saints, who have won 5 straight. And the big question surrounding this game: will Drew Brees play? There's been a lot of talk around that team this entire week, and it sounds like the plan right now is that he could potentially start in this game, which is stunning because when the injury first happened, they said the target date would be 2 weeks from now when they take on the Falcons. But they're saying he could potentially play in this game. I know a lot of people have offered their opinions on it. I personally think that, maybe Teddy Bridgewater should start this game and not Drew Brees. Give Drew Brees just that extra 2 weeks to really get back in the rhythm. Don't throw him out there against a team running a 3-game winning streak that's really feeling themselves on defense, that has the third most sacks in the league. Don't do that. I think you're asking for trouble doing that. Let Drew Brees take the next 2 weeks off, because next week is the Saints bye week, and then after that they take on a Falcons team that's probably still only going to have 1 win. So I think that would be the perfect team to have Drew Brees come back against, is that horrific Falcons team, not this Cardinals team that's really figuring themselves out and getting better each and every week. But once again, I don't know what's going on in that Saints organization, and if Drew Brees is healthy, it sounds like he'll be playing. So who knows what we're going to see in this game. But once again, I think Teddy Bridgewater should be playing. That's just my personal opinion. But I am overtly cautious about a lot of things. I think the Saints defense is really good, and it's played good this entire stretch that Drew Brees has been out. They're number 7 in total league. They're giving up 327.9 yards per game. It feels like they're way better than that, in my opinion. They feel like they're one of the best defenses in the entire league. I'm talking like a top 5, even a top 3 defense. Just watching them play, they just come in and suffocate teams. They're like a freaking anaconda. They're going to take away what you do best and make you look stupid. It really is just so much fun to watch this team play on defense. And this is the biggest test that the Cardinals have had this season. To my knowledge, I think this is probably the best defense that they've played. And the Cardinals offense has played better these last couple of weeks. Now, granted, these last 3 weeks, these 3 games that they've won, They're against, the bottom of the barrel of the NFL. Falcons, Giants. You can only play who's on your schedule, but still. The Cardinals are averaging like well over 100 and 120, 140 rush yards per game since this winning streak started. I'm expecting Chase Edmonds, their backup running back, to be a big factor in this game. I'm just curious as to what this Cardinals offense will look like against a really good Saints defense. I'm not expecting this Cardinals offense to come in and put up points at all. I think they're probably going to get confused and flummoxed. It's just curious because this Cardinals offense has been getting better, but they've been playing bad teams, and this is a good team, so I think it's a good litmus test for this Cardinals team. They're infinitely better than they were last season. I think that's beyond a shadow of a doubt at this point. But I just don't know. There's still a lot of questions about this team. Like I said, their defense has been playing better. They got 8 sacks last week against Daniel Jones. I doubt they'll get 8 this week. But it'll remains to be seen. Who knows? Maybe the Cardinals will come out and make this a very competitive game. I think we would all love to see that. Either Drew Brees or Teddy Bridgewater versus Kyler Murray in a quarterback duel in the fourth quarter, I think could be a lot of fun. But I'm going to take the Saints to win this one. I just think no matter who's playing quarterback for the Saints, I just think they're a much better team than the Cardinals right now, and I think that defense is just going to be too much for Kyler Murray to handle. And that's another aspect of this. The Cardinals have done a pretty good job of protecting Kyler Murray, through this winning streak. So it's going to be important to see if they can keep him protected against guys like Michael Davenport and Cam Jordan on that defensive line of the Saints. But once again, I'm gonna take the Saints to win this one. I just think they're a much better team. Moving on to our next one, the last of the early games. We got the New York Jets going all the way to Florida to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a weird game because the Jets kind of are back in the woeless state of football. They were riding high after the Cowboys win, and then they just had that embarrassing Monday Night Football loss to the Patriots. So it's just hard to get a reading on this Jets team. Sam Darnold, their quarterback, is not 100%. In case you haven't heard, he had one of his toenails removed after the loss to New England. So that's I just shuddered at the thought of that. Oh man, that's nasty. So he's not 100%, so he's probably going to be a little limited in this game. I've never had a toenail removed, but I imagine it hurts quite a bit. So his mobility could be in question in this game, and another question for him, will he be seeing ghosts in this game? I think all quarterbacks see ghosts, but who knows? That's going to be a big question for him because, he was caught on microphone saying that he saw ghosts in the Monday Night Football game, so who knows? Maybe the Jags defense can get after him. This Jags defense is average in basically every metric in the league, but I think they have enough talent to flummox the Jets offense right now. But for the Jets, I think Le'Veon Bell needs to step up. I mean, they paid that guy a lot of money in the offseason, and I know that the quarterback play hasn't been there for most of the season. He's been playing with Luke Falk, and, the defense has been able to come up and, stymie the run, but still, it's just Le'Veon Bell just hasn't had any kind of production this season, and I wonder is it because they're not using him as a receiving back like they did in Pittsburgh, or is he just not having a good season? It's hard to tell, but this Jets offense really needs to show me something to stay competitive in this game. The Jets defense is back to being banged up because C.J. Mosley is out with a groin injury. It sounds like he was way less than even close to 100% when he tried to play Monday night. He left after one series because of his injury. So you got to wonder, is this a good bounce back game for Gardner Minshew? Because, these last 2 weeks he hasn't had, the best statistical performances like he was putting up earlier in the season. So this could potentially be a bounce back performance for him. But I'll take the Jags to win this one. I just think the Jags are a much better team right now than the Jets. It's hard to buy into the Jets right now. It's just really, really hard. they're staring down what looks to be a pretty bad rest of the season for them, especially with rumors that they might trade Robbie Anderson at the trade deadline. It's just a bad season. And I want to take a quick second to apologize for something I said on the trade deadline extravaganza we had on Wednesday. I said that Kelechi Osemele, the Jets offensive lineman, could potentially be a trade target. I was apparently misinformed on that whole story. I thought the injury he was dealing with wasn't as severe as it truly was. As it turns out, he apparently needs season-ending shoulder injury. I just want to correct the record. I was wrong on that. So it's important for transparency to admit when you're wrong. So best of luck to Kelechi Osemele and getting healthy as soon as he can. I just wanted to write the record on that one. But once again, I'll take the Jaguars in this one. Moving on to the first of our late games, and in my opinion, the game of the weekend. The Carolina Panthers, the 4-2 Panthers, riding a 4-game winning streak, going to San Francisco to take on the undefeated San Francisco 49ers at 6-0. Game of the weekend, in my opinion. A matchup of two really good defenses. Both in, where they excel are in two different areas. The Panthers currently lead the league in sacks. They have 27 sacks on the season. And the 49ers are in, the top two of every statistical category on defense, and run stop and pass defense and total defense. This 49ers defense is good. And it starts from the defensive line with all those first-round picks that they put into that for years. But the objective for both teams is simple. Stop the run. The 49ers need to find a way to bottleneck Christian McCaffrey and make him not a factor. Find a way to implement what the Buccaneers did when they were able to slow down Christian McCaffrey. But for the Panthers, they have a much tougher problem because they don't have to worry about just one running back. They have several running backs they need to worry about with that stable of backs that San Francisco likes to rotate throughout the game. But the objective for both teams is simple. Stop the run and force the opposing quarterback to throw the ball. If the game comes down to Jimmy Garoppolo versus Kyle Allen, I think that's what both defenses want. And that could make things very interesting because both of these teams offensively have had issues with turnovers. 49ers have been better these last 2 weeks in terms of turnovers, not doing it as much as they were the first couple weeks. But ever since Kyle Allen came in to be the quarterback for the Panthers, he's had a fumbling issue. It doesn't always end in disaster. I stumbled on my words. End in disaster. But he has had a fumbling issue these 4 games that he's been starting quarterback for. 4 games, right? Yeah. So it could come down to maybe a turnover or two decides this game. I just think it's very interesting to watch it if it comes down to Jimmy Garoppolo versus Kyle Allen. Especially since Jimmy Garoppolo just got that new fancy weapon in Emmanuel Sanders to really bolster that offense. Emmanuel Sanders and George Kittle catching the ball is now a massive threat for teams. I think it's going to be a really fun game. It's going to be a close, tight game that comes down to the fourth quarter. But I've rode San Francisco for a couple weeks now, and I'm going to keep doing it. I think the 49ers find a way to win this game against a really good Panthers team. And I think if you're Carolina, I think you're hoping for one of two things in this game. Of course, you want to win, but I think they're hoping that their quarterback issue gets resolved in this game. That either Kyle Allen comes out and stinks up the joint and just looks horrendously bad against a really, 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 really good 49ers defense, or he comes out and he looks really great against a really good defense. I think either way, I think they'll have their answer. Because they don't want this to come down to them having to make a choice between Kyle Allen or Cam Newton. They would rather, Kyle Allen make the choice for them to the point where everybody's like, okay, we understand if you go back to Cam Newton or you don't go back to Cam Newton. Because think of this. If Kyle Allen comes out and throws 3 touchdowns and like 300 passing yards in this game, even if they don't win, I think Carolina has its answer. But if Kyle Allen comes out and throws like 5 interceptions or, fumbles the ball like 4 times and, barely throws for 200 passing yards, I think Carolina might also have its answer. Cam Newton's getting healthier and healthier each week, so a time to make the decision is coming for the Panthers. But I'll take San Francisco to win this one. I think that's really going to be game of the weekend, and if you have a chance, watch that game. All right, moving on to our next one. We got the 2-4 Cleveland Browns coming off a bye week in the middle of a 2-game losing stretch, going to New England to take on the undefeated heavyweight of the NFL, the 7-0 Patriots. Oh man, this Pats defense is historic. There's no way getting around it. And yeah, they've played bad teams. They played nothing but bad teams this year. And this Cleveland Browns offense is, on paper, the best offense that they played. Not in terms of stats, but just in terms of talent on that offense. With Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and Chubb. It'll be the best offense that they played in terms of talent. But this Patriots defense is historic. And the numbers are probably going to go down a bit for that defense, when they start playing better teams like Dallas and Baltimore in a couple weeks. I just think that defense is too good. I think this Patriots offense could literally be the worst in the entire league, and it won't change anything. I think if you look at the numbers, I think from the game Monday night, I think if the Patriots defense stayed on the field the entire game, I think they still would have won that game. That's how dominant that defense was Monday night, and how dominant it's been the entire year. And they're going up against a Browns offense that, has been not good for large chunks of the season. They've been unwatchable. They've been out of sync, whether it be from players dropping the ball, whether it's from Baker Mayfield seeing ghosts and, throwing bad passes, or the offensive line is not blocking, or their coach doing horrifically bad play calling or situational choices. It's just a lot was going wrong with this Browns offense the last time we saw them. They've had a week to prepare for this game, and it'll be curious to see what kind of Browns offense we get in this game. Because they've shown that they can be explosive in spurts. Like the beginning of the game they played against Seattle, they looked great, and then everything fell apart. For the entire game that they played against Baltimore, they looked great. So, they have potential. They just don't always seize potential. I am kind of worried about the Patriots offense, though, that they've struggled moving the ball. Tom Brady, he's missing some throws, but he missed throws last year. So it's hard to really read into it and get on to the Patriots about struggling in certain aspects, because I know none of it's going to matter in February when they win the Super Bowl. Just like it didn't matter last year or the year before that. I'm kind of worried about the Patriots offense, though. I'm a little worried watching them play. They struggle a bit running the ball. Josh Gordon and Tom Brady, weren't always getting on the same page. And now Josh Gordon's gone. They put him on injured reserve, and it sounds like they're going to cut him from injured reserve. So in comes Mohamed Sanu to take his place. So it'll be curious to see what the Patriots do on offense, for the rest of the season. I just don't want to read too much into that, though. I think the Patriots will be fine. That defense is going to lead the way for them. And once again, what version of the Browns offense are we going to get? Are we going to get the super explosive, everything's working offense? Or are we going to get the one that, misfires and Baker turns the ball over 5 times? Because what was the stat on Monday night? That the Patriots have gotten 18 interceptions on defense and have only allowed 1 passing touchdown? That's crazy. They might get a couple in this game. But for the Browns, I think they've had their best success on offense when they're running the football. So just try to establish the run with Nick Chubb and hope for the best. That's really all you can do. And you know what? If you go in and you get your butt kicked by New England, it's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. Everybody's getting their butt kicked by New England. But hey, if they could go in and be watchable on offense, I think that's a vast improvement over where they've been for the Browns. But I'm going to take the Patriots to win this one. I just believe in that defense too much, and just there's too many questions around the Browns offense, whether they're going to be watchable this week or not. So I'll take the Patriots to win this one. All right, moving on to the last of our late games on Sunday afternoon. We got the 3-3 Oakland Raiders going to Houston to take on the 4-3 Texans. And might I say, it took me a couple days to connect the dots on this one. But the Texans pulled off one of the most disrespectful trades I think we've ever witnessed. I don't ever remember anything quite like what the Houston Texans did this week. I mean, the Oakland Raiders. So the Oakland Raiders have the cornerback Garyon Conley, their first-round pick from 2017. He plays Sunday against the Packers for the Raiders, and he has a bad day. Aaron Rodgers, scored 6 touchdowns in that game, like we mentioned. And so Monday rolls around, and the Raiders trade him away to a team that needs corner help. They trade him to the Houston Texans, the team they're playing this Sunday. You know how disrespectful that is? Hey, we don't believe in you at all. In fact, we believe in you so little, we're going to send you to the team we're playing against, and we feel you won't be a factor. That's basically what they're saying. The disrespect by John Gruden and the Raiders is wow. That's something. The Raiders haven't played well defensively this season. They're number 24 in total D with 376.5 yards per game. Their pass rush really hasn't been there, especially from their first-round draft pick in Cleveland Farrell, who, they took it like 4th overall, and he just hasn't really produced. In fact, the 4th-round rookie from Eastern Michigan, Max Crosby, has produced better than Cleveland Farrell has, in all brutal honesty, which is sad. The Raiders have 10 sacks on the season. That's among one of the worst in the league. So I think that should be great news for Houston, because as we said all season long, and I always feel bad for repeating stuff like this, but it's true. Houston's best games come when they protect Deshaun Watson, and he doesn't have a lot of pressure. So if they can keep the pressure off and keep Oakland's defensive line at bay, everything will be okay, and Deshaun Watson will put up points. It happens in every game that they win. He's not getting pressure. He only gets sacked maybe once or twice, or heck, not even once, and in a couple cases. So you protect him, and everything will be okie dokie. I think the Texans have just too many weapons to deal with for this Raiders team. They got DeAndre Hopkins. They got the 2 running backs. They got Will Fuller. They got the tight end Fells. They have a lot of weapons that can score from anywhere. And Deshaun Watson's also a threat in the running game when he gets down to the red zone. And we've talked about this Raiders offense that, it feels like their offense is, going to put up maybe 20 to 24 points, and that's their limit. Josh Jacobs is their everything on offense. So if you take that away from them and, force them to throw the ball to Darren Waller, I don't think Tyrell Williams I think he's still out, to my knowledge. So you force Derek Carr to throw the ball and, force him to put up the points. I don't think this Raiders offense is going to succeed. That's just a fact, in my opinion. That's not doubting the Raiders at all. It's just saying, that's what their offense is and that's what it's built around. But since Houston has all these weapons, I'm going to take Houston to win this game and get a bounce-back win for them that they could really use, after that big 2-game winning streak and, losing a surprising loss to the Colts. I'm going to take Houston to win this one. I don't really believe in the Raiders, especially their defense. I think their offense is okay, but they just have to keep it close. And the way you keep it close is you got to get pressure on Deshaun Watson. But I don't think the Raiders can get pressure. All right, moving on to the Sunday Night Football game. You got the 6-1 Green Bay Packers with a 3-game winning streak going to Kansas City to take on the 5-2 Chiefs. Mahomes will not play. He's going to be out for a couple weeks. He was at practice this week, stunningly. I can't believe that. He practiced with the team, although it was in a very limited role. I mean, my God, he just dislocated his kneecap Sunday, and he's already back. Not Sunday, Thursday, the previous Thursday, and he's already back in practice. I mean, my goodness, man. So Matt Moore will get the start for Kansas City, and you got to wonder how he's going to look in this game. He padded his stats thanks to that big running catch by Tyreek Hill in the last game. He did okay and serviceable for most of that game, but it was against the Broncos, and the Packers are a much tougher team to play against. Matt Moore's going to have to make some throws in this game to win it. And they got weapons. They got Hill. They got Kelsey. They got weapons that they can throw to. It's just a question of what's Matt Moore going to do. Kansas City is going to have to commit to the run, in my opinion, and win time of possession. Keep Aaron Rodgers off the field and don't let him go on these long drives that tires out your bad defense. Because at the end of the game, if the time of possession is in favor of the Packers, like 38-21, then you're going to probably be able to guess that the final score is very much in favor of the Packers. They got to find a way to manufacture runs to take the pressure off of Matt Moore and control time of possession and keep Rodgers off the field. Because Rodgers, it feels like each and every week, it feels like he's getting better and better and better, which it should terrify teams. Because it feels like each week we're saying Rodgers played his best game this week, or Rodgers played his best game this week. Well, he played his best game last week, and that was 6 touchdowns. So what is he going to do this week? The Chiefs' defense had a really good game last week against the Broncos. But for the majority of the season, they haven't played well. Like I mentioned earlier, they're the only other team in the league who's given up over 1,000 rushing yards. And that should really make Aaron Jones and that Packers offense very happy because the Chiefs are soft against the run. They're the number 29 rushing defense in the league, giving up an average of 148.9 rush yards per game. What I'm getting is their defense is bad, and I think the Packers are going to take advantage of that. It's hard to buy into what Matt Moore and Andy Reid are trying to sell you, that they can stay competitive. I think the Chiefs' defense is bad, and it's going to be left on the field a lot in this game, and Matt Moore is going to have to find a way to score touchdowns. Not field goals, touchdowns to win this game. And that's why I'm taking the Packers to win this one. I just don't see a situation in which Matt Moore is going to go out on the Sunday Night Football and outscore this Packers offense that is just kicking it into high gear and getting better and better each and every week. I think that defense is going to find a way to come in and get after Matt Moore and make life uncomfortable for the Chiefs offense. I just don't believe in Matt Moore. I'm sorry. I just don't. That's why the Packers are going to win it. All right, moving on to our last game. Oh, boy, what a game this is going to be. The 0-6 Miami Dolphins taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, the 2-4 Steelers in Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football. Oh, joy. This rivalry used to be special, the Dolphins and the Steelers, back in, the 80s? When the AFC was run by the Steelers, Dolphins, and Raiders. It feels like so long ago. Oh, man, this game is going to be bad. I have very little notes about this game because I feel like nobody's going to watch this game, including myself. I'm not going to subject myself to this torture. This game is going to come down to the Steelers' defense, in my opinion. I think they've played really, really well these last couple weeks, even though the stats really don't support it. I think they've played better. And the good news for the Steelers is they're getting back Mason Rudolph, who got cleared from concussion protocol last week, so he'll be the starting quarterback in this game. So their offense could potentially be a bit better. For each game that I preview, I try to have 4 to 6 bullet points for each game written down with notes. And for this game, I have 4 total bullet points. 3 of them are about the Steelers, and one of them just says the Dolphins are bad, but bad with 15 A's. They're just an unmitigated mess, and I don't even want to watch them or talk about them. I think the Steelers are going to probably win this game very handily. Uh, Dolphins are just such a mess. Tank job incorporated in Miami. Steelers win this one on Monday Night Football and probably an ugly, sloppy game in Rudolph's first game back. And that's it for our preview podcast. I know we went through a lot of games quick there, but there were a lot of games this weekend that just don't look very appetizing, so I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about them. So thanks for stopping by on our Week 8 preview podcast. The next time we talk will be this coming Tuesday, where we'll recap all of the games we just previewed and then preview the Halloween Thursday Night Football game next week. And that's about it. So thanks for stopping by and hanging out on this October Friday. And have a good Week 8. Bye.